Okay, the Atlanta Falcons went against a division rival, came out with a victory, and yet fans were booing a lot in this game. Hey, so you might know what we do on this channel. We are Lions fans. We love the NFL. So we wanted to do other teams that don't get just the national media hype. The Falcons are kind of one of those teams. And so we love talking about them on this channel. But you see the title, the Falcons win. They haven't even scratched the surface. And I'm going to talk to you about what that looked like. In all respects, they look like the better team than the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you dice it, they looked better. So, what does that mean when I say they haven't even scratched the surface? So, let's kind of go into the numbers here. We're going to look at the box score. I'm going to get into some PFF numbers. We're going to go into some deeper stats and just some eye test type of things. When I was watching the game, I watched it on the condensed replay on NFL Network. All right. And I also watched it while watching Red Zone. Let's go. Red Zone. That is an experience. Has anybody watched Red Zone before? Because I'm always watching the Lions game and then I'll watch games in review and I'll watch them later because I love football. But I've never done the Red Zone thing. It makes you a horrible father, a horrible husband, because like you can't take your eyes off it. You're just sitting there and you're like, glued. That probably looked creepy on camera. Anyways, so let's talk about some of these stats. Desmond Ritter he got a lot of scrutiny, and there were a lot of questions coming in to the season about like, can this be the guy? Well, when you look at the numbers, he looked good. 15 of 18, 115 yards. 115 yards is terrible. I know that. I understand that. But when you look at the surface level, like they're okay. But what was much better than that was the rushing attack. Tyler Algier, I said I need to correct myself. I was wrong because I went back and I watched the last 4 games, the Ritter starts that Atlanta had last year on NFL Plus. And I watched Tyler Algier, and I'm like, you're going to be frustrated when this guy's in the game because Bijan's so much more explosive, so much better. And I was wrong. Tyler Algier has some juice to him. Like I can admit it. I was just flat out wrong on this. And behind that line, they looked really good. But when I say they haven't scratched the surface, what happened with Ritter is he had a good completion percentage, but he had some high throws. He had some low throws. He had receivers. We know they're good that were making really spectacular catches on catches that didn't need to be spectacular catches. It got the team behind the chains. It looked like he was afraid to go deep with it. These numbers looked a lot uglier before Pitts' 35, I think it was, yard catch in the fourth quarter, which we're also going to talk about how that's a good deal and showed some trust by Arthur Smith. But we also need to look at the fact that there were some struggles here. There were absolutely some struggles. Desmond Ritter came in as the 13th rated offensive player on this team. He had an overall PFF grade of 52.1, a pass grade of 51.8, a run grade of 58, and a run block grade. That doesn't matter. All right. So he wasn't great. And that's why I think you're not even scratching the surface, because there's no way he is going to be this poor for a long time. I think he needs to be let go a little bit. I think they need to let him go, and I think you need to see what he can do, because they have Taylor Heineke right behind him. Heineke has proven that he can be at least a mediocre player in the NFL. Like, he has shown that. And so, like, if Ritter's going to continue to be terrible, right? I don't think that, like, it's one of those situations where they keep him in there forever. I know he's the next guy, but there has to be a level of better behind. Otherwise, they're going to go to the next man up. And I don't think they are. I don't want to start a quarterback controversy here on this channel. Ritter's the guy. He can run more effectively. When you look at the PFF grades, Taylor Heineke, I just looked at it. If you saw me stuttering for a second, were actually worse. His career averages are worse last year, at least, compared to what Desmond Ritter did in this game. But here's what Desmond Ritter at least proved he could do. He proved he could not make stupid throws. He proved that he can play within the offense. And he even showed later in the game that he could throw the ball downfield. So when I say you haven't scratched the surface, what I'm saying, imagine what happens when you get the same production out of Tyler Algier, when you get the same production out of Bijan Robinson, but you also get Ritter throwing the ball 30 times for 200 plus yards. I think that is absolutely in the realm of possibility, but it became very clear early on that they didn't have to do that. I mean, look at what they were doing. They were holding this team in check. It took Bryce Young 38 pass attempts to get to 146 yards. He had 2 interceptions, both by Jesse Bates. Hey, you liking that contract now? I bet you are, right? The running backs, that you didn't stop the run as well. I'll admit the run was going pretty well, but you stopped the passing game and it became pretty apparent pretty early on that you just had to hold them off long enough. And then the offense started to click a little bit in the fourth quarter. So let's look at those offensive players and defensive players on who your best grades were. Kyle Pitts received your number 1 offensive grade. All right. He had a run block grade of 57, which is his lowest part, but an offensive grade of almost 80. Dahlman, the center, was number 2. Algier was 3. Robinson 4, all over 70. Your 60s club are Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, and Keith Smith, and even Godwin Igwebuike. All right. Matthew Bergeron, the guard, the guy that you were like, hey, you hope he can do something. He was actually really solid in pass protection. 84. His run blocking was atrocious at a 40, like really bad. Like you shouldn't be playing him bad. On the defensive side, as you might expect, much better. You had a 90s club, Jesse Bates, 94.5. That's one of the highest grades I've ever seen for a player for an entirety of a game. David Onyemata was at his heels, 89.8. He was everywhere. Grady Jarrett, 82.2. Round out the 80s club. The 70s club was Caden Ellis, AJ Terrell. We get somebody now in the defensive backfield as a corner, and Lorenzo Carter. That runs out your 70s club, and then you have some good guys in the 60s as well. Interesting one was Troy Anderson, who racked up 10 tackles. But had the lowest tackling grade on the team outside of Calais Campbell. So here's some of the things that I just kind of noticed and I wanted to talk about. Like, you haven't scratched the surface because I think you have a ton of room to grow. You have a ton of room to grow with a young quarterback in Desmond Ritter. You just want him to become Ryan Tannehill. Also, Bijan Robinson showed that he was awesome, and it looks like Smith is going to be happy giving them equal carries. So going forward, getting both of them getting 10 to 15 carries a game, keeping them healthy for the entirety of the season, but they make the most out of their plays. It's kind of fun to watch. You have big playmakers, Kyle Pitts, and not to mention Drake London didn't even get a thing in this. He had one target, and you know that guy can play. So they haven't even scratched the surface. Really excited to see what happens next week. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Leave a comment. See ya.